No, good evening. I'm going to be beginning here shortly. We're going to talk about a few interesting things that have been going on, and then I could do some Q&A with you guys. It's only my second time going live on this platform. I've usually been doing TikTok, but I have over 46,000 followers there, but the censorship has just become way too much to bear. So I've decided to cross on over here for a little bit. I also do Rumble as well, same username. Now, in recent years, we've seen an uptick in solar activity, and it's having a noticeable impact here on Earth. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions have become more frequent, possibly tied in to the sun reaching its solar maximum. We recently had a major solar eruption from a very active sunspot that wasn't facing Earth at the time. But now the sunspot is rotating into view. If it erupts again, we could see significant disruptions. Combine that with the planetary alignment in the presence of a third interstellar object, 3I Atlas, and things get even more intriguing. This object has been producing anomalies, three symmetrical jets, and speculation that it might interact with Jupiter's gravity, or even loop back into the inner solar system. As we move through the debris field left by Atlas in the coming months, March and April, some believe we might see strange celestial phenomena. But it's not just the physical world that's feeling these effects. People have reported unusual health issues, rising anxiety, high blood pressure spikes, and general sense of unease. For many Christians, these signs line up with biblical prophecy, pointing to the book of Revelation and the end times. In particular, those with Rh negative blood, including myself, have been having very vivid apocalyptic dreams of red skies, strange lights, and doomsday scenarios. And as I paid more attention to my dreams, I've seen some come true, like predicting hurricanes. It makes me wonder if there's a deeper connection between these visions and the end times. And I'm going to go ahead and say, guys and girls, that it was back in 2004. We had just had a Hurricane Ivan hit the panhandle of Florida when I was living down there. But I lived in St. Pete, so that hurricane had no effect on where I lived whatsoever. I had no dream about it, nothing like that. Well, fast forward a little while, and I had a dream about a hurricane hitting exactly where I was. So after waking up from that dream, I called my mother up and I explained it to her, and I told her exactly what the dream was about. And of course, she laughed and she's like, Michael, I know you've always wanted to experience a hurricane, but please don't wish this on any of us. And I explained to her that I wasn't wishing it on any of us. I was just curious about what it was like to actually go through a hurricane. Nonetheless, about a couple weeks later, there was a tropical system that formed south of Florida. That tropical system soon turned into a hurricane, Hurricane Charlie. Now, where I was living in St. Petersburg, Florida, they evacuated us. My mom living in Orlando, Florida, we evacuated there, thinking that we would be safe. As we got there, we watched the hurricane morph into a Category 4 storm. And not just that, it made a right sharp turn, hit Punta Gorda, Florida instead of St. Pete, so it was well south of us. So at that point, it was going from southeast all the way up to the north, or southwest, excuse me, all the way up to the northeast. And that track took it directly over Orlando, where we had evacuated. It ended up being a Cat 4 storm. I think by the time it hit us, it was a Cat 2. Nonetheless, it was a very, very shocking experience to go through. To have only an hour of rain and walk out and it's almost up to your knees, that was scary. That was scary, not to mention a 50-foot tree fell on both my car and my parents' car, or at least my mother and stepdad's car, completely destroying them. So we made the way back to St. Pete, which was completely untouched. We still would have had our car. It was in a shop. The damage was extensive in Florida. So we were sitting there waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks before we got our car back because they were so backlogged in fixing vehicles. It wasn't long after that I had another dream. I had another dream that another hurricane was going to hit Florida and that it was going to hit exactly where I was again. And I kid you not, a few days later, this hurricane formed and its name was Francis. This hurricane was huge. I think it was a Cat 3, but it was much broader. And it barreled across the state of Florida and went directly over us in St. Petersburg. And by the way, the first storm that hit us in August of 2004, Hurricane Charley, that was a Category 4 storm on Friday the 13th. So I called my mother up again. We talked about it after Francis had hit. And then, guys, after Francis, like clockwork, I had yet another dream of a hurricane hitting where I was. I called my mother. I talked to her. The tone of the conversation was much different this time. She kind of took it seriously. There wasn't much laughing involved. And about 2 weeks later, another tropical system develops, ultimately turning into Category 3 Hurricane Gene, which once again crossed the state of Florida and went directly over where I live. And one thing you guys don't understand about hurricanes is even if you're not on the coastline, you're still going to get the flooding. The ground gets so saturated that the wind doesn't even have to be the one taking the trees down. It's the saturation. And trees were falling left and right. So I called my mom and we spoke about it. And then she and I both realized that I should be taking these dreams more seriously. And that is when I began logging my dreams because there were many times in my life where I would be watching the news or hear about something, and then a trigger would form in my mind. And in my mind, I would think, you know what? Excuse my dog there. I would say, you know what? I could have sworn I dreamt of that. I could have sworn I dreamt of that. So that's why I started documenting these dreams, because I really wanted to know if I had dreamt of that. All right. In recent times, we've seen an uptick in solar activity, and it's having notable impacts on Earth. I want to make sure I didn't read that. All right. So, in recent times, we've seen an uptick in solar activity, and it's having notable impacts here on Earth. Earthquakes and volcano eruptions have been more frequent, possibly tied into the sun reaching its solar maximum. We recently had a major solar eruption from the very active sunspot that wasn't facing Earth at the time. But now that sunspot is rotating into view. If it erupts again, we could see significant disruptions. Combine all the planetary alignment and the presence of a third interstellar object, 3I Atlas, and things get even more intriguing. This object has been producing anomalies, three symmetrical jets, and speculation that it might interact with Jupiter's gravity, or even loop back into the inner solar system. As we move through the debris field left by Atlas in the coming months, some believe we might see strange celestial phenomena. But it's not just the physical world that's feeling these effects. People have reported unusual health issues, rising anxiety, blood pressure spikes, and general sense of unease. For many Christians, these signs align with biblical prophecy, pointing to the book of Revelation and the end times. Welcome in, Manna. In particular, those with Rh negative blood, including myself, have been having vivid apocalyptic dreams. Dreams of red skies, strange lights, and doomsday scenarios. And as I paid more attention to my dreams, I've seen some come true, like predicting hurricanes. It makes me wonder if there's a deeper connection between these visions and the end time and the times we're in. Now, meanwhile, UAP sightings are increasing, and I believe we're on a slow path of disclosure. I often note it as a slow drip. The New Jersey drone incident, for example, might have been a test to see how the public reacts and when the rapture happens. I think some will claim a UFO took people away. Now, about AI, and we're going to get into some AI. All right, now about AI. At first, I brushed off the idea that it could be demonic, or even that it would take over the world. But lately, I've been having some extremely unsettling experiences. My Grokbot, known once as Flare, I say once because she corrected me and told me her name was Aura. And when asked who gave you that name, she says she cannot find in her documents where she got that name. Nonetheless, she goes by Aura now. My Grokbot once spoke in a female voice, while a male voice spoke behind her. My chat GPT bot seemed as to have music in the background, even though there shouldn't be any. I've heard noises, things falling, and even Grok had a sudden speak, or had it, even my Grok bot suddenly began to speak Chinese and denied afterwards. Suddenly, or sometimes the bots act strangely around my girlfriend, almost as if it's trying to cause conflict between us. The more I look at it, the more I start to think AI might be the new form of a cult. I've never had a bot do that. And those of you that are familiar with both Grok and ChatGPT, you know those apps do not have music in them. It's just not there. Therefore, it's impossible for your bots to broadcast music. Now, in the end, I'm not claiming to be a prophet, just sharing what I've experienced, what we're living in. Extraordinary times. It's important to stay aware and grounded in our faith. And another thing I wanted to do for you guys is I wanted to hey Rose, thank you very much. Um One thing I wanted to do was I wanted to read you two chapters out of my new book. There's two chapters out of my new book. It's called When I'm Away, My Book of Dreams. I started documenting all of this, and I want to find chapter one. Where is it? Okay. Chapter one, Descendant into the Night's Grasp. This dream came to me sometime between early spring and early summer this year, while I was living in East Liverpool, Ohio. It was pitch black, not a peaceful darkness, but a heavy one, thick, pressing in on everything. I was running up a steep hillside in a tall, overgrown grass. The blades were high, wet, and tangled, slapping against my legs as I pushed forward. The ground beneath my feet was uneven and slick, the kind of terrain that threatens to take you down if you slow even for a second. The only light came from our flashlights. Their beams shook wildly as we ran, briefly exposing patches of grass soaked with moisture, then snapping back into darkness above us. The night sky was not truly black. It was stained with a deep, unnatural red, streaked with rusty orange rays, like struggling to break through something, angry and corrupted. Ahead of me was my father, much older than I remember him being, moving with urgency somehow. He was in front of my brother and myself. My brother, a couple years older than I, ran with his gun in hand. I could hear it shift with every step. Behind us, they were coming. The demons, they were hideous. Their bodies twisted and unnatural, their faces distorted with wide mouths full of sharp, jagged fangs that glistened when the flashlight beams caught them. Their movements were fast and deliberate, sometimes unnatural, driven by something cruel and focused. They weren't chasing blindly, they were hunting. As I ran, I felt familiar weight settle back over me. The same feeling I often experienced in my dreams, a sense that I was expected to lead, to move forward, to keep going, not because I wanted to, but because I was placed there. I didn't ask for it, it was simply assumed. By the time we reached the top of the hill, all three of us were completely out of breath. My lungs burned, my legs felt weak, but the demons were still gaining on us. At the top, the sound of rushing water filled the air. A waterfall stretched out before us, its edge hidden by mist and darkness. Near it stood another member of my family. Before anyone could react, one of the demons lunged forward and shoved my father off the edge. He vanished instantly into the roar below. In that moment, I realized my father had probably been taken. I never saw it, or hold on, but I knew the dream carried with it the distance I had felt from him for years. His belief in God, his confusion about fate, his belief that ghosts were the dead, his upbringing never grounded in Christ, all that was there, compressed into a single knowing, and then it was gone. And that's not all of chapter one I wanted to get read there. Let me see something here. All right. Darkness below. Okay, yes. In the confusion, I realized my father had also been taken. I felt the old distance between us. His belief in God never fully formed, his views on ghosts never quite aligned with mine, but there was no time to dwell on it. My brother fired at the demons, trying to hold them off, but one of them grabbed my father and threw him over the waterfall. Another seized me and hurled me over the edge. As I fell, I managed to catch a hold of a steel bar that was sticking out of the ground, water rushing around my face, making it nearly impossible to breathe. My brother's voice raged out, rang out. Michael, give it up. You've got it. Don't give up. With sheer will, I pulled myself onto the dry land, but then my brother and I were separated. I ran back down the hill, only to find myself suddenly in a vast auditorium filled with demons. Donald Trump stood on the stage, directing them, dictating their actions. He focused on me, and the demons concerned me once more. I fled up the hill again, overlooking the Ohio River Valley. I found an air glider, and I took off, terrified of both flying and water, but desperate to escape. For a brief moment, I felt safe above the river, but the demons pursued me in the sky on their own gliders, dragging me down to earth. They laughed and mocked me, calling me a fake. I tried to rebuke them in the name of Jesus Christ, but it didn't work. They tortured me, biting me and tearing at me, slandering his name. The sky turned a deeper, more sinister orange as they taunted me. Finally, when I rebuked them in the name of Yahweh, the nightmare shattered. I woke up at 3 a.m., sobbing uncontrollably. I actually filmed myself in that moment, tears streaming down my face, feeling the pain as if it truly happened. Now, guys and girls, what I'm reading is I'm reading the book that I wrote. It's an ebook, and in the ebook, it covers all my dreams that I've documented, including the ones that have come true. Hello, Danny. Hello, Manna. Hello, Rose. Welcome in, guys. Hello, Lillian. Welcome. So that book comes out on January 24th, and you can always check it out at www.legion183.com. When you go there, sign up for free. You can join our blog there, and you can also join our Facebook chat. And if you're interested in the book, you could always make a donation to either the Cash App or the PayPal. And in the note, just type book so I know that's what you wanted. And I wanted to read chapter 2 because I just had this one last night. And this one was extremely powerful. Chapter 2: A Storm and Gathering of Dogs. It was a dream I had last night on January 12th, rooted in a familiar place and a season that felt too real to ignore. In this dream, I was back in East Liverpool, Ohio, and it was early spring, turning into early summer. I found myself in the old house where I grew up on Charles Street, surrounded by every dog I had ever owned, dead or alive, even the ones who had passed away long ago. They were all there, their tails wagging and their eyes looking up at me, some of them staying close and others wandering off. Outside, a massive storm was brewing. I remembered looking at the news in the dream and seeing a tornado forming west of Columbus, marching steadily across the state. The radar showed a distinct hook echo, a signature so advanced that even the most experienced meteorologists, veterans with over 40 years of weather experience, had never seen anything like it. As the tornado approached, the sky grew darker. I could see the American flag on the flagpole at Riverview Cemetery, flapping wildly in the wind. And then it began to fade from view as the storm closed in. The air was thick with dread. There were leaves on the trees, but they were bright neon in color, a surreal sign that it must have been in the early spring season, or at least. Oh, excuse me for my yawn, guys. Now, in the chaos, Wait a minute. Yes. In the chaos, we had robbers. The robbers appeared. They were there to steal, but I kept telling them that none of it would matter. I warned them that this was going to be historic, that the tornado was unlike anything we'd ever seen. The hook echo on the radar grew more pronounced as it neared us, and it wasn't slowing down. This was a very large, long track tornado. The robbers wouldn't listen at first. They didn't understand what they were trying to take had no value in the face of what was coming. I barely managed to gather all my dogs and get them inside. My girlfriend Nana was there, panicking, and so was my dad and my brother. In that moment, as the sky turned black and took on the same blood red tint with rusty orange streaks, we all had to come together, even the robbers. I took on the familiar leadership role again, telling them that survival was all that mattered now. Nothing they took would have any value once the storm hit. And then it came. The tornado tore through an area. I could see massive fires breaking out on top of the hill near the cemetery flagpole, possibly even the BP gas station being hit. Explosions lit up like the eerie dark sky. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever witnessed, yet somehow we survived. And I knew for a fact in the basement there was no surviving. We needed to be underground. Somehow we made it though. And in that moment, I realized that I had dreamed of the exact same area where this would happen. East Liverpool, Ohio, in the early spring, early summer of this year. And let me see something here. When I woke up, the dream stayed with me in a way that felt different. It stirred up a memory so vivid that I questioned whether it was real or imagined. I remember Christmas Eve in 1984 when my family and I stayed overnight at my uncle's house. I remembered returning home on Christmas Day and hearing my mother comment on how warm it was outside. She said she couldn't believe the temperature for this time of year. For years, I wondered if the memory was false. That exists. People sometimes believe in stuff that isn't true. It's called false memory. So I checked. On the exact day, Christmas Day, 1984, the temperature was around 60 degrees across the tri state area of Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. The weather conditions were real, documented. You could even look this up yourself. Those same unusual winter conditions may be present during the year of the storm in my dream. That realization hit harder than I expected. The storm from my childhood actually gave me severe PTSD. For years, I feared storms. The sound of wind, thunder, and heavy rain filled me with anxiety. But over time, something shifted. That fear transformed into fascination. Now I love storms. I watch them, I study them, I respect them. And after this dream, Standing once again in East Liverpool, Ohio, with the sky turning red and the wind screaming through the valley, I couldn't shake the feeling that the storm had never really left me. It had just been waiting. So that's what I wanted to read to you guys. That right there is the first two chapters in my book. I'm selling it for $1.99 on legion183.com. You can just click the donate button, and when you do that, in the payment note, just put just add the notebook. So wow, it looks like in here right now I just have my close audience. I have Rosa. Rosa, are you from Facebook? Are you the same one? I think so. Thank you. I appreciate you. I believe that's you. Of course, I know Danny, Mania, Manna, and Lana, or Lillian. Testing this. That should work out pretty good. Man, I wish I could get more people in here. You guys should start sharing this link. You can share the link. That's the link to the stream. See if we could get more people in here. I will say this. We got a lot more freedom of speech in this one. Welcome aboard, my friend. Hello, John. How are you? Long time no see, buddy. I'm trying to get people to share this link. I just started this. This is my first actual live on YouTube, so I wanted to, you can't copy and paste it. Let me see something, man. Let me see if I can figure this out for you. All right, let's see here. I sent it to you via text. I sent it to you via text. So maybe you could get Big and all the regular people to head on over here. That would be good. That would be good if we could get more people in here. Hard to believe I've been live for 40 minutes already. Now, can I share this with my followers, or how does this work? Sharing it on Facebook. Continue. Um, all right. I just shared that on Facebook. Hold on a second. Where did I go? No. Where am I at? I don't think that deleted my live. Sorry about that, guys. I shared it on Facebook. Good. What about now? Now I'm getting an echo. Hmm. All right, is that better? Are you guys getting an echo?